Hello everyone. You should hopefully all be able to see me now. As tempted as I am to see me and hear me, as tempted as I am just to sit and enjoy the nice chat that we're having in the comments at the moment, we should probably get started since it's 6 o'clock. So please, hello everyone. Oh, sorry about that. There might have been a bit of an echo there. I hadn't realised that I had my sound still on. Hello Tracy, really nice to see you. I think I've already said hello to everybody else who's here in the comments. So please let me know if you can hear me and if you can see me okay. A couple of people have said yay in the... Kay and Carleen said yay in the chat. So I'm assuming that we're probably all right and that we're working. Well, good, everybody says. Great. Hello, Anna. Welcome to you too. Great stuff. I think we're ready to go. So firstly, let me welcome you to 2020. Welcome back to the Threads streams. And I hope you had a really nice, restful and enjoyable Christmas and New Year, if you could. Hopefully with family, if you could. We had a very quiet time. Just me and Michelle and the kids stayed at home. We had a lot going on, obviously. You probably know a lot of what's going on with us at the moment. So we just had a really quiet time, really enjoyed it. Had a few days off. Back in the studio and painting now and ramping things up. So for this one, I think it's for the first webinar of 2020, I think it's going to be a nice idea, kind of apt to kick it off with something a little bit different than we haven't done on Threads before, and also a new project. So we've done a couple of streams on social media stuff. We talked a lot about growing your audience, and in particular about Instagram. Now, Instagram is an interesting one to me because I've done a little bit of Instagram stuff, but I've never been very good at it. I've never been very regular with it, let's say, and I've never really explored its potential. I've just bunged up a few photos on there, and of the various social media things that I do personally, which is Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, I've done the least on Instagram. I've let it kind of wither a little bit. I haven't been very diligent with it. But you know, everyone is aware now that Instagram is a really big platform for artists. Okay, so we want to be looking at it. So I've come up with the idea of running a little project through the rest of this year, or however long people want to carry it on, really, that will continually update in Threads, and for it to be very much a participatory project. So this is something that we can all do together, and we can actually all help each other's Instagram followings grow, not just by subscribing to each other, by following each other. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about how we can, in a way, inside Threads, we're uniquely positioned to, let's say, help the algorithm, the Instagram algorithm a little bit, with knowing that we're sharing useful stuff that other people will want to see. I'll go into that in a little while. So from the webinar today, I would strongly encourage you to take some notes. I'm going to put up a Facebook post tomorrow in the Facebook group. I'll have the replay of this up there as I usually do now. But I'm also going to post the action points from the webinar. Now that sounds very serious and kind of officey. I don't really mean, maybe action points is the wrong word, but some immediate things that we can do as a group to start to build our followings and to help each other out. Okay, so Now, you know the way that I approach all of the social media stuff that I do, and the way that I would advise you to do it too, is not about likes and follows. I think that the bad side of the social media stuff is it's very, very easy to get drawn into comparing your own kind of follow accounts and profile and the stuff that you post to other people. And all you ever see is a very edited version of someone's life on social media. So we all do it, you know. So you tend to think that other people are having a better life than you, they're more popular than you, they maybe have their business running, selling paintings on Instagram, and you're nowhere near that yet, you know, all those kind of things. That's the bad side of it. We want to put all of that aside, not bother comparing ourselves to people who are doing better than us, but we'll look at some of them to try and figure out what it is that they're doing right. With any social media platform, really, that's a really good place to start, is to look at people who you like, who you gravitate towards, who are using it well, okay? So of the two sides of using social media, there's building up a following and an audience on the social media site itself, whatever it is. And the most important bit that I think most people don't do, even now most artists don't do very well, is to get people from the social media site, from your profile there, back to your website and get them to sign up for your email list. Because then we're not dependent on the social media site for contact with these people. I read an interesting statistic today when I was reading up about some stuff on Instagram, that the stuff that you post on Instagram will only show in about 10% of your followers' feeds. Okay, and then when you also factor in, it will depend on how many other people they follow, whether they see your post at all, the likely exposure you're going to get, the likely numbers of people who are going to see your stuff. Excuse me just a second. Is actually quite low, okay? So the reason for that is that the algorithms that run these sites, it's the same on Facebook and on Instagram, they choose what they think is the most important to show to somebody else. So you're dependent on them choosing what you post and showing it to the people that you want to show it to, which is very different from when you have someone on your email list. And this is why email lists are so much more important than social media followings. You can have the biggest social media following in the world, and if you don't have anybody on an email list, you're not set up as well in order to do business online as an artist, which is what we're all about, okay? So that the second part, which we'll look at once we've gone through this project a little bit further, is how to get people from a social media site, and especially from Instagram, back to your email list. Now, we've touched on a lot of this stuff before. Excuse me just a second. I'm still a little bit full of cold from over Christmas. On the December webinar, I showed you a way that you could put links into your Instagram profile that you could then track how many people click on those links and actually come back to your site. And indeed how you can put URLs into the posts as well that you can track as well. A clever way of tracking those even though they're not actually clickable. But the best way to use Instagram to get people back to your site is only unlocked for you really once you've got over 10,000 followers. And that seems like a huge amount, but I don't think that's, none of us should look at that as being an impossible number. It's certainly possible. But in order to get there, the first step for us is to start to build our followings, okay? Hello, Barbara and Bobby, good to see you. And hello, Renee. Okay. Well, I'm glad you found your password now, Renee. That's good news. So, oh, this is annoying. I'm using my phone as I had the bright idea of using my phone as a backup screen today, but of course it keeps switching itself off as phones will. Part of the reason, actually, it's kind of it's ironic in a way, because Part of the reason that I've never been that great with Instagram is that I'm not a big fan of phones. I just don't like the idea that people can phone me at any moment. I mean, you know, I'm a painter, right? If I'm painting, the last thing I want is someone phoning me up or texting me and sending me messages, my phone dinging all the time. It's part of the reason I've never been that great at Instagram. So Carleen was just saying in the comments about New Year's resolutions, you know, and I guess mine is to do better with Instagram this year, or one of them anyway, to the extent that it is a resolution. Okay, so I'm going to go over how we can, the various ways that we can start to think about building our follower counts on Instagram. That's the main topic for this webinar today. And then we'll see how we go. So feel free at any point to ask me any questions. I'll do a little bit of screen share and show you at least one person's Instagram profile that I think they're using really, really well. Probably the best. I'll show you a couple actually, probably two of the best that I see as good examples that I think. Probably one of them you're already following. You may well be, but we'll take it from there and we'll see. But I think the first thing that we're all going to have to accept before we start, and you always have to with stuff like this. In fact, it's a lot like painting, in that not everything that we try is going to work. You can read an awful lot of advice online about what you should be doing. Most of it will be rubbish. Most of it is just people putting up stuff that they've found on other sites in order to get more followers themselves. So we're going to test. We're going to actually do some stuff, come up with some ideas, things that we can do, and I've got a bunch for you today which I'll go through, and then we're going to start doing them, and then we'll start looking at the results and sharing what happens. Okay, this is my idea, but the success of this little project is going to very much depend on how much you get involved with it personally, each of you as Threads members. So let's go through what I've got for you today. I think once we've accepted that a lot of the stuff is going to be testing, some of it won't work and some of it will. Some of it will work a little bit and some might work very well. If we can kind of pool our results, then we're much more likely to find out things that are working much more quickly, not only for people who already have some following. I think I have about 1,000 followers or something like that. Also for people who have almost nothing. You know, how do you go from almost nothing to start to build up a following, you know? So it's going to be really useful for us to see all the different levels of building up. I would suggest that we all track our follower count over time, not obsessively, but just from a point of view of finding out what's working and what isn't. That would be a really good thing for us to do as well, I think. And also for any URLs that we put in our posts, to track those so we can actually see how well each post is doing, if it has a URL or a link in our profiles, to make sure that we track that traffic as well, which I also covered in last month's webinar, the recording of which is on the Facebook group if you want to check that. Okay, so another thing I would think about is right at the beginning, excuse me, I would consider investing in a decent DSLR camera. It's by no means necessary, especially for Instagram, since it's all done by phone anyway. But you can actually post from a desktop. I'll show you, probably as we go a little bit further through the project, I'll show you a way that you can do that. It's not too fiddly to do. You can do it through a browser. You basically have to convince Instagram that your laptop or whatever you're using is actually a phone, but it can be done. And that means that you can then take photos, you can process them on your desktop or your laptop in Photoshop or whatever photo editing software you have. You can take really high quality, really nice pictures and then upload those. For some things that can be really useful. So if you don't already have a decent DSLR, might be worth thinking about getting one. Budget wise, I use this as my, I think they call it a Rebel T6i in the US. In the UK, it's an EOS 760D. It's a pretty good camera and you can get them secondhand fairly cheaply now. Anything like that, about that level would be fine. With just a pancake lens on it, a portrait lens would be fine. So hopefully that all makes sense to you at this point. Let me just have a quick check up on the comments. Renee says, I enjoy Instagram but could definitely do better. That's pretty much exactly the same for me. I pop in there every now and again and I have a quick flick through what people are posting. I really like to keep up on other people's paintings, you know, what they're up to, so it's good for that. But actually getting around to doing stuff myself, I just very rarely do it. So hopefully we're both going to be able to change that a little bit. Carlene says, since I'm also not in love with the phone, I've been prepping my photos on my iMac and then use a small cheap app, Uplet, to post the photo to Instagram. That's interesting. I didn't know about Uplet. That's definitely worth trying. Thanks for that, Carlene. I'll give it a go and see how it works for me. It's a slight hack, the way that I was doing it from inside a browser, but it does work. The camera, yeah, sure. I mean, this is the most important bit of the camera, really, I think. I mean, you've got the body. This is, as I say, this is a Canon EOS 760D. You can probably get these second hand for about 250 quid now, I should imagine, without checking the prices. But the lens is very simple. It's what they call a prime lens. It doesn't zoom at all. You can get these lenses for about 100 quid, probably about $100. This is a Canon lens. Because it doesn't zoom, it means if you want to get more in your picture, you have to actually move your camera back. If you want to zoom in, you actually have to move the camera forward. But the good thing about them is incredibly good picture quality at a real budget price. So they call it a prime lens. You may hear it described as a pancake lens sometimes. But they're very cheap, very good quality lenses compared to, you know, 600-700 quid you'd otherwise pay for a good quality lens that you zoom with. Oh, Renee's got a Rebel TS7i. That'll be better than mine, I should think. Maybe right in the name of the camera. Yeah, sure. It's a Canon EOS 760D, also called the Rebel T6i. It's actually quite an old camera now. I think has very much been superseded, but any mid-level DSLR camera is going to be fine, you know, for our purposes. So I'm gonna go into, I think one of the big problems that people have with Instagram is wondering what there is that's useful, that you know, you might be wondering what you have that's useful and interesting for people to share. I'm going to go through my feed shortly just to show some of the things that people are sharing that I think are really good, and also some of the ones that we really don't want to be doing. But just to give you a few examples, I mean, I think for us, for artists, what we do is very visual anyway. I'm sure that's why Instagram has taken off so much for artists, because we work in a visual format. We have loads of stuff that we can actually share. If you just look around your own working space or your studio, I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find lots of stuff that you could share images of that would be interesting. Finished work is the obvious one. That's what most people put up. But you can actually do a lot more than that. What I have done on Instagram quite a bit when I have used it is put up quite a lot of whip shots. Let me show you quickly. Let's stick a screen share on and I'll show you my Instagram feed. Okay, that should be, hopefully you should be able to see my Instagram feed. Let's have a look at, so I rarely post finished stuff. What I quite often post is stuff like this. These kind of things tend to be quite interesting to post. Stuff that you're just starting. This painting completely bombed, by the way, which is why you will never have seen it. Sometimes I will post finished stuff, like this is a finished one. That one was almost finished there, but not quite. There's a little whip shot. So whip shots are great. And I've found also it really helps if you post a picture of what you're painting beside the subject. Now for me, obviously, because I'm working site size, that works quite well for me. But I think it's a really, it's a really good way to add just a little bit more interest. Okay. So apart from the obvious stuff, finished work and whip shots, you can also put in just general photos of stuff you have in the studio. Now, funny enough, I see these get liked almost as much as the paintings that I put up. just pictures of the stuff that I've got that I'm thinking about painting. But these aren't snaps that I've taken and stuck up there. And you don't get this kind of image quality with a phone. You can see that this is all very sharply in focus here, and then everything else back here is blurred. That's a good lens on a DSLR with a shallow focal depth that's doing that. And this photograph has been imported into Photoshop and filtered a little bit, you know, to try and bring out a nicer quality photo. Here's another one. This one got liked quite a bit. Again, just little studio shots of stuff that I've got hanging around. Every now and again I'll do stuff like this. I'll show pictures of the surrounding countryside around here, which is pretty photogenic. Yes, the boys sometimes. This again was just a photo that I took, but it looks maybe like I just had a bunch of stuff in the studio and I took the photo. That took me about half an hour, probably more, to set that photo up. Spent quite a lot of time over that, you know, but it did get, you know, almost as many likes as a painting does for me. It got almost as much engagement. And that's the key, that we want to be getting engagement. That's pretty much all I've used it for so far. You know, this is preparing for a workshop. Sometimes I'll post stuff that I just find interesting, but mostly so far, Studio Cat, of course, he's got to be there. Mostly I'll be posting whip shots, okay? Whip shots, finish work, stuff around the studio. Now, palette setups, I found people find that fascinating. People really like to have a look. This one actually got more likes than some of the paintings where I'm just showing a palette setup and what colours I've got on there, together with the Munsell chips. You know, I haven't even started mixing yet. Really strange. It got loads of comments, that picture. So stuff like that is really useful. The materials you use, I haven't done any of that yet, but I'm planning to do it at some point over the next year, to start posting pictures of the materials I'm using. There's a little bit in there of stuff that I see that inspires me, some of that as well. And one of the things, actually, when I was looking through this a little while ago, my own feed, you can see I haven't actually posted that much stuff. It goes back here to some drawings that I did a while ago. Now, I don't know if you will remember, or if you were following me then, but these are from like 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago now, when I got seriously ill in hospital. And when I came out, basically it was pretty bad and I almost didn't make it. And when I came out, I started a little series of doing a drawing every day and writing a word down for something that I felt grateful for. And surprisingly, I used to post them on Instagram and Facebook, and a lot of people were really interested in following that series. After a while I stopped because the drawings were quite involved to do. Sometimes I think I should start something like this up again. But stuff like this is really useful, you know, if in terms of having stuff shared and engaged with and commented on. A series like that, I found over time, was really, really useful. So something like that could be good for you to think about, okay? Let's go back to the Instagram homepage. Look at this, beautiful. Isn't that gorgeous? Rosemary's does some really beautiful work. That kind of lighting is so hard to handle as well, and she's done it so well. Anyway, so this is a really nice one from Rosemary. She does quite well, I think, on Instagram now. Mostly posts finished work. We'll have a quick look through. Now, posting paintings is great, you know. This is a friend of mine. He's a really good friend. He used to paint, although he doesn't so much now. But he posts a lot of stuff on my Instagram feed, which incidentally, I'll show this one in a second. This is from Mariana, who's also a Threads member. And this is a great one, actually, which I want to show you. But let me show you a couple more from, by the way, cats are always good. This is Sean as well. He's posting stuff from his life. This is Sean again. Now, I love this man. He's a really good friend. But this is not what we want to be using Instagram for. This is how most people use it, incidental stuff from their lives. And that's mostly what they do. I would strongly advise, if you're doing it using Instagram to build an audience, if you want to do that on a different account, if you want to just post stuff for your friends. This one is great. Little video of a Turner exhibition in London. Brilliant. Brilliant idea. That's the kind of thing that will really catch people's eye. Okay. Not cake. I would say also, frankly, not pictures of yourself in daft hats. People are not that interested. This is really nice, okay? Really beautiful photos. I mean, that I very much doubt that was taken on a phone. That looks like a DSLR to me and then uploaded, you know. In fact, it is. Look at the depth of field. These are the kind of photos you can get off stock photo sites, really good quality. My friend Sean again. You know, stuff like this, people really will enjoy looking at that kind of thing. You know, if you post it, the chances are that will get engagement, and it's a good thing to do. So that pretty much covers, to a large extent, I think for us, the kind of things that we can think about posting. But just posting interesting stuff and just making sure that all of it is good quality. That's like the default advice that everyone will give you on how you should use Instagram online. And it is pretty good advice, but you know, you could do that until you're blue in the face. And if you don't already have many followers, it's not going to grow your follower count much. And that's all. To be honest, that's all I've ever done personally on Instagram, and that's why my follower count there is pretty low compared to Facebook, say, or YouTube, you know, because I've never really, I've never gone out of my way to try and develop my audience further. And the way that you do that is by making sure that your stuff gets seen. Now, this really comes back to the Instagram algorithm more than anything else. So the first thing we need to be doing, okay, and this might seem like a chore at first, but I don't think it has to be if we approach it right, is you need to be connecting with people. Now, as you know, I'm always talking about what we do is building relationships, and I've found that that's the best way that it works. It's not that you're doing it just in order to sell paintings or something like that. Try and build relationships in their own right, because they're good in their own right, and they're a positive thing, and do it naturally and build connections with people rather than trying to market to people, and you'll find that everything will work a lot better. But the kind of people that you want to be connecting with are people with, basically, there's no way around this, bigger follower counts than you. Okay. So you want to find people that you naturally gravitate towards, who already have plenty of followers. And the first thing to do, obviously, is just to follow them. But that's not enough by itself. Okay. What you also need to be doing is liking, commenting, engaging with their stuff. And the reason you do that is because it's more likely then that sooner or later they're going to turn around and follow you. And if they follow you, then there's more of a chance that they will engage with your stuff. And the more comments and likes that your posts get, the more likely they are to show up in your followers' feeds. Okay, that's basically how it works. And this is how I think we're kind of, as a group, we're almost uniquely placed in that we're not on our own. And we can kind of take advantage of the fact that there's quite a few of us in Threads. And if a few of us get active in this project, then we can make sure, if we're popping on Instagram once a day or every other day or something like that, that if we see a post from another Threads member from part of our group, that we engage with it in some way. And then we're all helping each other out to kind of the rising tide that will float all of the boats. So that's something certainly to be aware of. So I think when you're looking for someone to follow, and the first kind of action point, if you like, that I want to give you from today is to find one person who you would like to build a connection with. Don't pick someone just because they've got a big follower count. And if you're looking at someone who's got like 100,000 followers, the chances of them noticing you are pretty slim. Choose someone who has a bigger follower count than you. But choose someone who you feel you would like to go for a coffee with in a chat, because then it's going to be much easier for you to engage with them than if it's some kind of forced thing that you're doing purely for marketing purposes, okay? So I'd recommend that quite strongly. Make sure it's someone that you're genuinely interested in. So that's the first thing that I want you to get your pen out, or your laptop, or whatever you've got to make a note with. Action point 1 from today is to find one person who you're going to follow. Okay. So the next thing that you can do in order to make sure that your stuff gets seen more regularly is using hashtags. Now, to my shame, really, I've done quite a bit of. I think I've posted about 80 odd pictures on Instagram. It's not that much, and I think I only started putting hashtags on the last 2 or 3. So for all of that time, I haven't been using hashtags at all. Almost obstinately not using them. Which again is probably why I don't have that much of a following on Instagram. But basically the way the hashtags work is that if someone is following a particular hashtag, then there's a good chance that your post, assuming of course that it's got some engagement, is likely to show up. You know, so I see there's a few that I follow and I just see random stuff popping up sometimes. Or if someone searches for a particular thing on Instagram, there's a chance that your post will pop up. But the thing with hashtags is, you can put loads of them in there. I don't know what the limit is, I forget now, but some ridiculous number that you don't ever want to use, you know. More than 10, I would say, it's getting to be, there's more hashtags than comment, you know, that you write yourself, the post you write yourself. Don't go really broad. Art is pretty much useless. Oil painting is pretty much useless. So start to narrow it down to what you specifically do. Still life oil painting is a bit better, but still very broad. Flower still life, a little bit better. Do you see what I mean? Try and bring it down a little bit, perhaps even to the subject that you're painting. Go a little bit more niche, and there's much more chance with the hashtag that you put down, that you enter into your post, that you will actually get, you know, a little bit more chance of showing up in a search than if you just put painting in. So the second action point I've got for you today to make a note of is to brainstorm. Just spend 5 or 10 minutes, brainstorm, think of some hashtags that you might be able to use. All of this stuff, each of these action points, by the way, I'm going to ask you to post in the Threads group as part of this project if you want to get on board with it, okay? And I will be doing the same. So brainstorm, say 5 or 6 hashtags that you think will be useful and will describe the work that you do, you know? You could put one in for, say, still life whip shots. You know, I'm sure there's people looking for that, and the competition won't be anything like so stiff, you know. So brainstorm, action point number 2, brainstorm 5 or 6 hashtags, okay. Now, increasing engagement. This is kind of, it's like the holy grail, really. This is what we have to focus on more than anything else if we're going to make the most of any of these things. It's the same on Facebook. Of course, Instagram is owned by Facebook anyway, so the algorithms are fairly similar. And on Facebook, they prioritize video first. But also, the more comments you get on something that you've posted, the more likely it is to be seen by your followers. And also, if someone else comments on something that you've posted, then they'll be more likely to see your stuff in future, okay? So engagement is really key. Now, what you can do in order to make sure that... Hello, Sarah. No problem being late. One thing that you can do in order to increase engagement is actually put up stuff that's asking for replies. Put up questions that are asking for replies. It's dynamite. You know, it works so much better because people do actually like to chat. But if all you do is put up pictures of your work, you might get some comments saying that's really beautiful, blah, 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 you know, or stuff like this. But what about if you put up a piece of work and you said something like, ask people for opinions for it. Not only ask people for opinions, ask people what you think you might have done better. Or perhaps there were some decisions that you made along the way. Put up a whip shot and say, I'm not sure if I should do this or that next. I've seen Julia Merrill-Smith do this a couple of times as well, and they always get quite a lot of engagement, those kind of things. And that is going to help you build your followers because it's more likely to be seen by people then, okay? you could put up 2 of your pieces of work and ask which one you thought, which one your followers thought was better. Okay, you could ask specific questions like, I really want to improve my values, my value handling. Who should I look at, to improve my? Who do you think is a really good example of an artist who does their values really well? It's just an example, anything like that. Edges, someone who paints flowers particularly well. I'm asking my artist friends, who do you think I should look at? Who you think paints flowers beautifully? Those kind of things will get a lot of comments. You could, anything like that, which is asking for advice from artists, is almost guaranteed to get responses, because one of the things that I've noticed over the years of being online about artists is that they love to advise each other on what they should do next. Sometimes even if they don't really have the background and experience to do so. So you do have to be kind of careful with this stuff. You may end up getting some comments which are well-meaning, but obliquely insulting, and you have to accept them with good grace. That's a really important point. Don't get wound up when people tell you that you should paint differently. I think it's a good thing to be humble anyway, because none of us have all the answers. So it's good from that point of view in any case. But bear in mind that you will sometimes get comments which you might disagree with, and just be careful not to get too annoyed by them. But also over time, I think when you look at the whole of your Instagram feed, you want to be kind of developing a little story about yourself, because what we connect with mostly, and what people will tend to interact with mostly, is stories. If you can show a little bit about your life, about your own personal artist journey, the thread that you're following, how you're following it, where it gets difficult, and if you can do that in images with just a couple of sentences, then I think that will really help. And that's something that I haven't been doing very well up until now. I do it really well on my blog. I do it fairly well on Facebook. I don't do it at all on Instagram, so that's one of the things that I'm going to be thinking about. And the last point I've got for you in terms of Instagram feeds and how you handle it is, forget all the advice about being consistent. Don't give yourself a plan. Almost everyone will tell you to do that. Say, I will post 3 times a day, or I will post once a day at this time, and I'm going to do it every day. I strongly disagree with doing that. I have periods even on my own site when I don't write a blog post for a few weeks. If I don't have anything I think is really, really worth sharing, I won't share anything at all. I would rather be inconsistent, but be consistently interesting and consistently useful and helpful, than just put out stuff on a schedule. If I have a lot of stuff to talk about, quite often, I usually put blog posts up on a Friday, and I have periods where I'll go a blog post every Friday for a few months, and then there'll be maybe a month or so when I don't get any up at all. So don't use it as a rod for your own back. Don't say, I have to do it no matter what. Let's just find any old rubbish and stick it up there because I have to stick to my schedule. If you don't have anything that's good, then don't put it up. By all means, stick to the schedule if you can do it in an interesting way and with useful stuff, then fine. But don't do it for its own sake. I think that's incredibly bad advice. A lot of people say that that's the kind of the magic bullet, if you like, for growing follower counts is being really, really consistent. I disagree very strongly. It's not something that I've ever forced myself to do. And it hasn't hurt me online at all, not doing that, So, although we will get, hopefully over time as we grow our followers, there are some benefits that come straight from Instagram itself, but never lose sight of the fact that the only reason that we're trying to build up a following there is so that we can bring these people eventually back to our site. Let me have a quick look. I haven't checked the comments for a little while. Let me have a quick look. Oh, Marilyn says, back to the camera, is it a DSLR? Yes, it's a DSLR, yeah. The Micro Four Thirds ones are also quite good as well. It's what I use in the studio for filming. I'm talking to you I'm filming this at the moment on a Lumix GH5, which is several levels in quality above that. So Micro Four Thirds camera is quite good as well, but it has a very expensive lens on it too. A lot of it is the lens. and you don't need a zoom lens in order to take really good DSLR pictures. So I would get, if you don't have one at the moment, a mid-range DSLR with a prime lens. They call them prime, P-R-I-M-E, prime lens. And they're very simple lenses, but they're very good quality, usually. Nikon D700. Marilyn, yeah, that's great. I mean, that'll be fine. I actually, in a lot of ways, I prefer the color balance of Nikons. Canons tend to punch up the chroma on the red side of the scale. Orange and red's an awful lot. And Nikons, are, I think, are a little bit more even. Helga says, I have an account I do very little with and have 45 followers. That's pretty good, Helga. Totally agree, have a great camera. Mine is a Canon cropped sensor 60D, right? Yeah. Yeah, the 60D is a really good one, I think, isn't it? Major difference in pictures compared to an iPhone. Completely agree. I think it certainly helps. Not everything. I mean, some of the photos that I put up will be from an iPhone. My trusty old iPhone 6. Actually, it's an iPhone 5, come to think of it. It's pretty rubbish, you know. But if I want to put up something really beautiful, then I'll take it with my DSLR and process it first and upload it. Oh, Barbara says, what shots? I assume that you're talking about when I said whip shots. Sorry, guilty of jargon there. I mean work in progress. Work in progress shots work really well. Mariana, hello. Did you get here in time for me to demo your Instagram post of the video of the Turner exhibition? That was a killer, by the way. We're talking about Instagram, and that was a really good example. Renee says, I look at follow accounts and I always follow people I enjoy. There's so many wonderful artists out there. It's so true. We're not short of people to follow, that's for sure. But what we're looking for with the one person that we're choosing is not someone that we're just going to follow. We're going to interact with them. We're going to try and engage with them, you know. It will just be good practice to do that anyway. Tracy says, I've just started using hashtags consistently. I'm not sure if I'm using them in the best way. The main thing to bear in mind with that is, as I was saying, don't use really broad ones like oil painting or still life. Try and niche down. We'll see what comes out of what people post in the Threads group. I'll post a few as well tomorrow. Is 30 the limit, is it? Yeah, it could be. Wick shops, no, whip shots, work in progress shots. Work in progress photographs. Sorry, Carleen. I'm probably not speaking very clearly because sinuses are all a bit bunged up as well. Yeah, looking at other artists' hashtags, especially if they do similar work to you, is a really good idea to get ideas for hashtags. Oh, Tracy switched to a business account. No, I don't have a business account. I generally avoid that stuff as much as I possibly can, partly because of my kind of philosophy of approaching it as I normally would if I'm just building a connection, a relationship with someone. So I'm not really looking to advertise, you know. What I'm most interested in doing this year, if I can, is to build up my follower count to over 10,000, if possible, so that then I can start to put links in my bio, into my stories. Because what's really useful about that, I'll show you an example of that in a moment. I'm saving the best bit till last to show you a couple of Instagram accounts that I think for people who are doing it very well, is that you can put highlighted links that stay on your profile all the time to stories. You can do that anyway, I think. You don't need 10,000 followers to do that. But you do need 10,000 followers in order to put links into your stories. But I think, and I could be wrong, if you have a business account, Tracy, I think you can do that. Can you put links in your stories? It could definitely be worth it for that. Rob Stewart Interiors, brilliant. Thank you, Tracy. We'll check that one out. Tracy says Rob Stewart Interiors are worth checking for someone who uses it well. A hashtag, very simply, is just, I'll put it in the comments, it's this sign followed by something like that. Okay, I've just put it in the comments. And all that means is it becomes a link, and if someone searches for that, then there's a chance that you're what you've posted might come up. Can you also talk a bit about sending Instagram posts to Facebook? Mine seem to disappear. I'm not sure why that is, because it's simply a case of checking the checkbox before you put the post live, and then it appears on Facebook. Mine don't disappear as far as I'm aware, so it sounds like there might be a problem between the accounts there, maybe. I'm not sure what that could be, but I would make sure that you've got your you've linked the accounts properly. That would be the thing that I would look at. I've never had a problem with mine, so it's difficult for me to advise you on that. I presume that you're doing that bit, you're checking it to say share also on Facebook too. Not too sure. Shelley, if you can't figure it out, drop me an email and I'll have a look for you. Carlene says, I don't want to need to keep up with Facebook, Instagram and my website too. Just too much administrative. Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean, Carlene. I think it can be quite good advice with this stuff to choose one social media platform and focus on that. I've been focusing mostly on Facebook and it's worked pretty well for me. But as I was sharing a couple of streams ago, I noticed on YouTube that my conversion rate of people who come over from YouTube to my site and then sign up for my list is way, way higher. So another one of the things that I want to do more this year is to put up a lot more stuff on YouTube than I have been. I've been very lax with that. I haven't put anything up there for ages, and the stuff that I have put up is mostly just replays of webinars, free webinars that I did quite a while ago. And to my surprise, I still have I mean, my YouTube following is 3-4 times what my Instagram one is, which is strange. Mariana says, depends on the phone. I take it that's the quality of the images you're talking about. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it does to a large extent. Mine is so old. It still takes all right photos, but it's never going to come close to a DSLR, I don't think. But I'm not going to disagree with anything Mariana says about photography, because she's a photographer and she knows much more about it than I do. Sharon says a hashtag is this. Oh yeah, nice explanation of hashtags. Thank you, Sharon. And Tracy says it's free to have a business account. It just shows you how many people interact. Yeah, I guess that could be useful. That could be useful, especially if it shows you. Well, I suppose you can check yourself to see who interacts. Maybe we should try that. Yeah, yeah. Maybe have a look at that and see if it works. If you can, I doubt if you can get the links if it's free. I doubt if you can then. As far as I know, the only two ways of being able to do the links is either if you pay Instagram, or if you have over 10,000 followers or a verified account. And I looked into the process of verifying your account and it was just so arcane. I just couldn't understand it myself, so I don't think that would work. Right, stories I'm going to show you in a bit. Stories I think are probably the best way that you can engage with people. Must put my hand up. I've never done a story on Instagram yet, but that's one of the things that I'm going to be trying soon. And Tammy says maybe we should put our Instagram handles here so members can follow each other. Yeah, absolutely. That's a brilliant idea, Tammy. So what I'm going to ask you to do, this actually brings us kind of to the, just before I show you a couple of Instagram accounts that I think are doing well. So firstly, if you want to get on board with this and you want to start giving Instagram a bit more of a go this year, and to do it as part of the Threads little project, which I'll be periodically updating as we go through the year. If you go onto the Facebook group and put a post up with a link to your Instagram account or just your handle name or something like that, so we can all start by following each other, so we can see what each other are doing. As you go along, if you see anything by another Threads member, make sure to like or comment on it, or to engage with it in some way, because we can kind of crowdsource our engagement then, and the more people that are involved, the more we will lift all of our profiles up, and I will do the same too. We won't do it all the time, obviously. We're all busy and have lots of stuff going on in our lives, but if we happen to be on there and see something by another Threads member, make sure to put a nice comment up. Okay, I'm going to do a quick screen share now. I'm going to show you a couple of Instagram feeds that I think are worth looking at. You may already follow them in any case. Rosemary's is great, by the way. Rosemary Lewis, Rosemary Lewis painting. I'm expecting wonderful things from Rosemary very soon. She's come a long way. Katie Whipple, probably one of the people that I follow, probably one of the people who uses Instagram best, I think. 60,000 followers. Obviously, it's quite a big following she's got. But she paints beautifully, Katie. But she's also very, you kind of get the impression that she's the sort of person that you would really want to meet up with and have a coffee with, you know. She lets you know a lot of her own feelings. She posts very useful stuff. Lets you know what inspires her. You get an idea of, you see these incredible, beautiful paintings, but you also get an idea of what inspires her. But what she does best is her stories. Now, I can't show you any of her stories at the moment, of the most recent ones, because they expire. But if you have a look at these links here, right, these are highlights, and these all go to stories. Now look at this. This one is genius. Questions about my materials. Scale of 1 to 10. How happy do tubes of colour make you feel? I mean, there's loads of these on here. It's a Q&A, okay. So this is stuff that people have asked her about her materials. So she put up a post saying, if you have any questions about what I'm using, just add them in the comments. And then she actually went through and she put together this story with answers. The engagement on that post must have been incredible, okay? So this is a really, really clever way to get some engagement, which is what I was talking about, by actually asking questions. So this is the way you make this is the way you make a story permanent, okay? Is by posting it up like this. Make it a highlight in your profile. And I don't think there's a follower count limit for this. I could be wrong, but I don't think there is. And she's got quite a few of them up here, you know. This is the kind of thing she'll post a lot. Quotes from artists, by the way, from famous artists, always do really well as well. So I think she's using it exceptionally well, and her follower count is a reflection not only of what a nice person she is and how beautiful her work is, but also how well she uses Instagram. And another one, funnily enough, is someone I follow that I came across through Katie. And she's not an artist. Well, she is an artist, but not in paint. She's does flower arranging. Now look at the quality of these images here. Now, Mariana, I don't know, you tell me, can you get images this good from a phone? I don't know, maybe you can. I can't with my iPhone 5. You know, they're so nicely taken. I mean, I follow, I think she's called Katie, is her name Katie? Katie Davis, yeah. I follow her as much as anything else, just for beautiful photos of flowers, you know. These kind of shots, they're very carefully staged. I mean, they look like she's just kind of, you know, wandering about doing her stuff in the garden, but all of this stuff, believe you me, is extremely carefully staged and carefully processed, and she's doing the same thing. Linking to stories in highlights, you know, so if you click on those, you actually get through to the story. Photos of stuff she's seen that she found inspiring. So those are two people that I think are using Instagram really well. Highly recommend following them and seeing what they do. Would be a really good place to start, I think. You make a story permanent by saving it to a highlight within Instagram itself. Yeah, Katie's brilliant, isn't she, Renee? Yeah, everybody follows Katie. She's great. Mariana says, you can if you have a newer phone and they all seem to be edited to have a consistent white balance. Oh, are you talking, Mariana, you must be talking about Ponderosa End Times pictures. Yeah, it's really noticeable with her. I don't think we need to personally reach those levels of professionalism at this stage. But yeah, I'd agree. There's a particular look. Maybe it's a setup that she has of a bunch of filters in Photoshop, but there's a particular look to her photos, which is very, very distinctive. And she does that really, really well. Consistency, for sure. What exactly is a story? A story, you can do them on Facebook now as well. I highly recommend you play with them a little bit. You can put a series of images, and you can also, there's some editing software within Instagram. You can actually put text over them as well. So you could, for instance, put a nice background with an artist quote on it, or some advice, or anything that you want to say. And it goes like a slideshow, or you can have a video. I mean, you can put video on Instagram posts anyway, but you can also put them into stories. And Instagram prioritizes stories in people's feeds in the same way as Facebook prioritizes stories now, but also video. So it's a good way of making sure that you get seen. Stories is something we certainly want to be looking at doing. Can the photos be clicked? Lightroom, Mariana says. Yeah. Right, Lightroom. You know, I tried to use Lightroom and I just could not get my head around it. Photoshop I can manage, but Lightroom, dear. Photoshop and Premiere I'm all right with, but not Lightroom. Doubtless you find it really easy, Mariana, because you know your stuff, but I didn't. Carlene says, can the photos be clicked to get more info on the how, why of the piece? Only if you have enough followers can you embed a link into a story. That's the only way you can do it. You need 10,000 followers. That's my goal. You know, that's what I'm going to try and get to, so that I can actually reliably bring people from Instagram back to my site. And Tammy says, did you know that if there's a red ring around their profile, that means there's a new story that you haven't seen? I didn't know that, Tammy, no. That's really useful. I mean, I pretty much, when I go to Instagram, I hardly ever use my phone for it, because I hardly use my phone for anything. Funny enough, I'm using it today as like, I don't know what it's doing at the moment. I'm using it today as like a little backup sort of screen, so I can check that the webinar's running all right. So I've got it open on the webinar page, you know. And I had to charge it. I don't think I've charged it for about a week. I'm so bad with phones. I'm going to have to get much better at that. Could you show us how to post from your computer? Now, yeah, what was it? Kay or Carlene said, what did you use? Someone said they used something to do it. I forget what it was now. Uply? Was it Uply or something? I'm probably making that up. It's not Uply. What was it called? If you can remember what it was, it's in the comments somewhere. I'm not sure if I can remember how you do it. Uplet, that's it, Uplet. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be having a look into that. I've never tried it before, so I would recommend, if that works reliably, Instagram Uploader for Mac. Yeah, so it works if you're on a Mac. I'll show you, see if I can remember how I've been doing it. Let me do another quick screen share to show you. So I would be in Instagram, and then you need to be in Chrome for this. You go into View, come back. Oh, no, iPhones. I'm going to disconnect my phone. Too annoying. I hate iTunes. View, sorry. Developer tools. Now I think is it inspect or is it view source? Now let me think. It's a little while since I've done this. No, it's that's it. You right click over it. So on a Mac it's control click and then you go inspect. And then you get this little thing under here. If you open this up a little way, you have to get open that up a little bit. Come on, do it. It won't do it. It's a bit awkward for me when I'm streaming because it uses up so much of my memory and bandwidth that the computer actually has problems doing anything else at the same time. Hopefully it will still work. And then you reload it, refresh the page, Oh, come on, do it. I need to be able to, here we go. Right. So did you see that? All I did was I clicked in this bit here and then I refreshed the page and it's brought it up with all of the same options you get on a phone. So you can then go in there and it looks onto your hard drive. So then you can actually find, you know, the stuff that you need, whatever, any image or anything like that that you have on your hard drive. So if I go in here, I find whatever, you know, I'm working on at the moment. I mean, anything would do really. Find a painting, find an image, make sure it's the one you want, and then open, and it will actually stick it up there. And it works exactly the same as doing it, as if you were doing it on a phone or a tablet or whatever. Handy little trick, and then you don't actually need to use anything else, you know. Yeah, through Instagram itself, you can't actually do it. You have to do that little kind of hack that I just did then. It's really handy though. You don't actually have to download anything to do that, but you need Google Chrome to do it. And most people use Chrome these days anyway. So if there's not any more questions, we're coming up to about an hour now. So just to go quickly over what I was recommending that we do, a couple of things. First one, put all of these things together on a post in the Threads group if you can, if you remember. I'll send out a little email perhaps as a reminder. Choose someone to begin with that you want to start engaging with. Look on it as a test. You're not necessarily going to grow your audience a lot just by doing this one thing, but it's the next small step. And I'm a big fan of when you have a huge project, a big thing that you want to do, it's too big for you to think about. Just think about the next small step that you can take that will start moving you forward. Because if you try and think about the whole thing at once, it's just too big, and it's too easy to get lost in procrastination and not move forward at all. So firstly, choose someone to follow. Secondly, brainstorm a few hashtags. Look at some other artist profiles on Instagram if you want some ideas for hashtags to use. Link to your own, give us a link to your own Instagram feed or profile, or you know, tell us what your Instagram name is, and then follow everyone else that links. And if you see anything on Instagram posted by anyone else from Threads, make sure to follow along, and we'll see how far we can get. So this is like the very beginning of the project. I think this is probably going to run for the whole year. At the moment, I'm imagining probably not monthly, maybe monthly, but probably about bi-monthly. I'm going to have a little check-in and share some of my results, what I've been up to and how it's going. Obviously, there's going to be other things in the webinars as well. So it'll just be perhaps a short section of each of the monthly webinars, maybe every 2 months or something like that. We can check on our results, or just keep it going in the Facebook group as well, you know, and see how we're doing. So there we go. Let's see how much we can increase our individual follower counts by. I think our only goal should be, I do have a numerical goal. I think I might have said already what my goal is. It's 10,000, but that's only so that I can start to put links in the stories, you know, and that's not the only way to get people back from Instagram. And I don't think you should be necessarily setting yourself huge goals, because for me, I have quite a big email audience. So obviously one of the first things I'm going to do is to add my Instagram profile to an email signature. So every email that I send out also includes that. And I may even send out, come up with something like a series or something like that that's just on Instagram, and send out an email to my audience to say, if you want to follow me on Instagram, this is what I'm doing. I suspect that will work quite well too. But obviously that won't work for everybody. If you don't already have any followers and an email list, then you won't be able to use that, you know. So the main thing to look at is just to increase it by some amount. And that in itself would be a success. Okay, so thanks very much for coming. I hope that was interesting. and useful. Don't forget to put your Facebook post in sometime in the next few days. We'll put mine in tomorrow when I put the replay up of today's webinar. And I'll see you next week for edge handling in the Studio Skills Workshop. Have a nice week, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.